Hello everyone and welcome back to the ESV TV Korean Weekly Season 3. We're going to jump into our next match. It's still in round 2, and it's going to be a best of 3 between Todd and Crank, which is awesome. By the way, Crank, well, let's take a look at these players, and I'll talk about them as I bring up their overlays. Here, if I can get these guys shown. Crank and Todd, there they are. All right, so Crank, upcoming Protoss, definitely I think one of the upcoming Protosses right now. He's on Team Slayers. And if you want to find out more about him or see more of his games, by the way, I've actually casted 3 replays of him from ladder practice games of his that he hand-selected some replays and sent them to us. And they're on our YouTube channel. Check it out, youtube.com/ESVTVSC. And there's a couple games of Crank on there just kind of showcasing his skills and awesome play. He's just really all around awesome. But he's gonna be up against Todd, who is one of the best 400 Protosses in the world, or one of the best Protosses in the world, but certainly one of the best 400 Protosses. This is a guy I know Artosis has been hyping up past couple of months, I believe, and he's got some awesome builds out there.
Yeah, it should be a pretty competitive match. I mean, PvP always can kind of go either way. I think the metagame is progressed nicely, so this should be a good series.
Indeed, it should. The first map's going to be on Cloud Kingdom, so let's jump right in and get this started. Here it is, guys. Game number 1 in this best of 3 between Crank in the 1 o'clock position, representing Team Slayers as, I believe, our light pink Protoss. Against his opponent in the 7 o'clock position, Todd as our blue Protoss, representing Team Fnatic Raid Call. So PvP on Cloud Kingdom, of course, we do have the small ramp leading to the main, so you don't have to worry about 4-gate as a result. But on top of that, with this small, not only the small choke point leading in the natural, but also the ramp leading up into the natural, so you'd have to like walk around to be aggressive. It really allows for some nice expansion-based play in PvP. 2-base is kind of the way to go here, PvP. You don't have to 1-base it. I mean, Blink can be really scary. Blink obs, you can blink into the main. There's a lot of surface area, but it's manageable if you micro immortals like just really well. So it's hard, no doubt, but I don't think this is a map where you have to stay on 1-base at all.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and especially about the point, the one weakness, the one thing you open yourself up to when you take that second base is blink play, blinking into the main. On maps like Daybreak, very difficult to be able to do that. Maps like Antigua, very easy to be able to do that. And This is one of the maps where relatively easy, but because of that natural expansion is such a kind of choked off relative to some other maps, definitely a map that you can get to 2-base on, and that's just kind of also reinforced just by the meta of this matchup by fields. It's stabilized a lot more. Like right now, this game, you can see neither player scouting quite yet. You can see here Todd scouting for a proxy. A lot of players will scout for that proxy and then just go right back to mining, but it looks like he will go ahead and just scout out now.
I'm surprised though. I mean, that is the most common proxy location, but he didn't just got the second most common one, man, which is like just to the right of where the probe pathing sees, where just so many proxy gates we've seen. There's also one, of course, up at the third to the left of the zone along a tower vision. So you only want to check one of the proxy locations. I guess, it kind of makes sense in that the proxy location at the natural is the one that's closest and would be most dangerous. Whereas if it's one of the other locations, it's far enough away that he might be able to defend if he just gets his probe to his opponent's base in time and sees that he doesn't have his gateway up. So Todd playing very intelligently. He has actually got his probe in the mineral line. Maybe we'll see him try to go for a min or pylon here. Perhaps not. He's just doing some harassment to the mineral line right now. But Crank not only dropped an extremely quick double gas, but he hasn't even scouted yet, which is becoming more common in PvP. Just not scouting at all. But I'm surprised, man. He didn't just not scout Todd's base. He didn't even scout his own base for proxies. There could have been like an in-base proxy. This is a 2-player PvP map in the first game of a series. That seems incredibly risky to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of the way things are going. I find one thing about the proxies, it's like, it seems like players with the best micro, even if that 2-gate proxy is in their natural, they can micro their way out of it, but not if it's one of the ones where the pylon is on the low ground and then the gateways are on the high ground. So it's definitely something that I'm a little bit surprised too to see him not double checking for, but you never know. These guys may run into each other on the ladder. They might know a little bit about their play and whatnot. But either way, back to the game. It was actually a sentry first. No stalker out of Crank here. So what do you think this is going to lead into here? Obviously, he's getting his second, and I guess now we know.
There it is, man. Stargate play. Not what I would have expected with that sentry, but it makes sense. I mean, you do need at least one sentry to be able to block off if your opponent runs up here with like some 3-stalker aggression, something like that. He has no scouting information. His opponent could be forwarding, could be going 3-stalker rush, could be doing literally anything. But we're actually seeing a really fast Twilight Council coming out from Todd here. So could be Blink since he's continuously producing stalkers. Could be Dark Templar play. In fact, either one would be fantastic right now.
Yep.
Blink against Stargate play is great for obvious reasons, but also when you go Stargate, sometimes you'll add the Robo or a Forge later on, but especially early on, you're usually not going to have that. So DT play can sometimes just blind counter Stargate play. So it'll be interesting to see what's Todd going to choose. Right now, he's only gone up to 2 gateways instead of the standard going up to 3 gateways, which you would do for either DT or Blink. So maybe he's going to do that kind of Korean 2-gate Blink expand. Okay, never mind. He's taking a third gate. So this is going to be a little bit more invested, and he does have the minerals. Yeah, Blink is about to start. There it is. So we're just going to see standard Blink play here from Todd, and that should work quite well against the Phoenix play, assuming he micros well. That's the thing. It comes down to micro, and it's a good decision because look at what Crank has in production. Already has that Robo. He knows DTs are a risk.
Yeah, and I'd love to see the Robo mixed in with the Stargate play because I really think Phoenix are a good way to just kind of open as your standard. As long as you're, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, by doing things like getting the Robo and making sure you're safe. Like, just right now, by sending out this first Phoenix, he's giving up the fact that, yes, I've gone for a Stargate build, but I just can't count how many games I've seen where it's a PvP and the guy going Phoenix waits to get 3 Phoenix before revealing them, and then DTs walk into the base and the game ends, right?
Yeah, I totally feel you. I also love it because if your opponent's going to go Blink, which is the single most common response to Phoenix play, you can actually pump out Immortals, which is actually what he's just started doing, and then you can go for one of those types of busts where your Phoenixes can lift the sentry so your opponent can't force field, and all of a sudden your Immortals are unbelievably effective against Stalkers. And that's actually why a lot of players against Phoenixes have started, instead of going Blink, will go Charge Lot Archons. So their Archons can deal with the Phoenixes. They can't be lifted, but Charge Zealots are going to be so much more effective against the Immortals that their opponent could be pumping out. But with good micro, Todd should be able to out-micro those Immortals anyways. And it looks like he's going to go up to 4 gates as well. So he's not planning on taking an expansion anytime soon. Going 4-gate, Blink plus Observer is pretty much a 1-base strat. You just stay on 1 base until the cows come home, man.
And do you think Crank is going to be expanding soon here? Because he just went up to 3 gateways. He's not producing as a Stargate, but he is still churning out Immortals. So I really feel he could very much either go for a timing or go for an expansion. Of course, I guess a lot of that might just depend on what his Phoenix see. And he hasn't actually seen that 4th gate, so it's still a little bit ambiguous.
And I am totally proven wrong. Todd actually taking a Nexus here after dropping that 4th gateway. So just a really bizarre choice given that, I mean, well, granted, the timing of the 4th gateway is pretty nice. After the expansion comes up, then you can just really start pumping out units like crazy. But it does create just a little bit of a weak point before that, where it's like your Nexus is a little bit later, the gateway you're not really using, you're not actually able to spend that money on like an extra Stalker because you spent it on a gateway instead. So Todd is really playing for a later timing. Right now he's weak, but in about like 3 to 4 minutes, he's going to have a great army. And he's going to have a great economy with that natural as well, so it's going to be up to Crank to bust it. Oh no, Crank's going to take natural as well. Even with all those Immortals, he has a lot of sentries, so that makes a lot of sense if you want to play a little more defensively with those. And we are just going to see 2-base versus 2-base play between these players. But even though Crank is the one that kind of gets to be the harasser with Phoenixes, if Todd can either take out those Phoenixes or maybe like drop a cannon as mirror line, something like that, or even just leave a couple Stalkers at home, he could absolutely put on a lot of aggression with Stalkers and Observers. And you need really good control and really good splitting of your army when you're going for Immortals and Blink Stalkers are just blinking up into your main, sniping pylons and blinking out.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if, this map, it's almost easier to get that 3rd base too, right? Because at your natural, it's just so easy to defend that your opponent is almost forced to take the long way around anyway. So we'll see. It's certainly possible. We do have a Robo Bay here coming up for Crank, though, and that's kind of to be expected. He's already got the Phoenix out, so he's nice and safe, and just going up to Colossus is kind of the natural progression. Colossus are kind of the unit for endgame PvP.
Yeah, you pretty much have to have them. I mean, you can make Charged Out Archon work against Colossi in some situations, on some maps.
It's tough.
But it's tough.
Yeah, not this one.
Not this map. This map has too many small choke points. Charged Out Archon is going to get too choked up. It's not going to work well. Oh, he's got to be careful with those Phoenixes. Nice control by Crank so far with those. But yeah, this is a Colossus map. You're going to need them, and you're going to need them quick, or you're going to need a lot of them. So we're seeing quad gas rushed by Todd. Not quite yet from Crank. He just rushed up that third one a little bit quicker, but maybe we'll get that fourth one pretty soon here. I would expect it. He's actually dropping a forge, so we'll get +1, which can be excellent with Colossi. Really, really bolsters their damage. But I'm curious, you know, he's not producing out of that Stargate. Is he just going to make gateway units in Colossi? Or is he going to add a second Robo and really pump those Colossi hardcore? We also see the Robotics Bay being added for Todd, so he knows Colossi are a necessity. He's going to be adding those on as well. But keep in mind, he still has Blink on his side, so that just really helps you out in later PvP battles. The Stalkers can blink forward, try to snipe off Colossi. But what Crank has going for him on the flip side is 4 Immortals. And late game PvP, once those Zealots in front start dying, and all of a sudden the Stalkers are tanking damage and the Colossi are tanking damage, those Immortals make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think you really hit it on the nail, especially when the Colossus count is high. The Zealots just kind of melt in like 2 volleys, and that's when the Immortals really kick in and really do a ton of damage. So we'll see here. Todd is going to have the faster second Robo, though, so he may be able to surpass his opponent, and actually the upgrades are just about lined up here, too, so there's not any kind of huge window that one of them may be able to hit.
I think Crank could hit a window with Colossus range. That's such an important upgrade in PvP.
Yes.
So if he can hit that with +1, he'll actually have like a 30-second timing window, basically, where he'll have Colossus range and +1, and Todd won't have either. So Todd going for the double Robo, yet again, is doing the same thing we saw him do with his Gateways and his Nexus. He's going for a later timing. So if Crank doesn't hit Todd with that timing, then Todd is going to surpass him in the Colossus count. Todd will have a huge advantage. But if Crank hits Todd before Todd has those upgrades and has really pumped out a lot of Colossi out of that second Robo, Crank could actually absolutely hit a timing here that would just crush Todd, because Todd won't have that range. His Colossi would be less effective, and he won't have that +1, which is just such a big deal. So Crank, I'm actually really surprised he's not posturing to be aggressive. His range and +1 are finishing right now, and he's going to lose his timing if he doesn't actually go for that engagement soon.
Yeah, I feel like he would have had to have been out on the map by now to really hit this, and he's adding in the Temple Archives too. So it looks like he is just going to play a straight-up hardcore macro game here. And Todd also actually posturing here with a probe. Looks like he's going to be throwing down. Yeah, there goes the Nexus. So we'll see here. Actually, the Phoenix fly in. And this should basically trigger Crank to either A, attack, or B, take his own third.
I really do hope he attacks, man. I mean, if he takes his own third and he's still going one Robo Colossus against double Robo, Todd is going to get so far ahead here. So Crank really just has a limited timing. I mean, you can tell right now it's 3 Colossi to 2. He has the advantage. In just a moment, 2 Colossi are going to pop out. That's going to flip into Todd's advantage, and Crank will never pull ahead there. I mean, he will always be behind the Colossus count, and that's such a huge deal. I don't know if he's waiting. Does he have charge? No, he's making a ridiculous amount of Zealots to not have charge against Colossi from his opponent. Like, double Robo Colossi making this many Zealots, it's almost just a waste of money. It just, you know, they're just going to melt as soon as your opponent's double Robo Colossi hit them. But either way, man, I don't know what Crank's planning here. He saw that third. Maybe he's just waiting for a slightly later timing. Meanwhile, we just actually have a couple Zealots from Todd being warped into the main thanks to that forward pylon and that Observer. But Phoenixes and some defensive Zealots should be able to deal with that pretty easily. But I still don't understand why he's not attacking. He saw the third. He knows, like, he's basically already missed his timing now. His only chance, I guess, is hoping that Todd is over-investing. Todd is not only going double upgrades and double Robo, but he's also adding, like, a Dark Shrine while trying to take his third. It's a lot to do at once, so maybe that'll give Crank enough of an army advantage to win an engagement. Is he actually just going to go take a third? What? Like, 2 minutes after his opponents?
Yeah, it's kind of like his initial expansion. He threw his Nexus down when his opponent's was about halfway done, and it's like, you can get away with that. But here, you know, it's like he doesn't have the second Forge. He doesn't have the second Robo. I just don't think he's going to be able to get the same max. The max that Todd hits on 3 bases should just be much better. And he's seen the Nexus, right? Yeah, he's seen that third Nexus. So at this point, I feel like Todd just needs to keep on chrono boosting his Forges and then tech towards a mothership, and he's just kind of got just a nice edge kind of in every sector, you know, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and I like that he's actually going Dark Shrine instead of Templar Archives. Specifically because he was going double Robo, he has to spend so much gas on his Colossi that the mineral efficiency isn't as important to him. Zealots aren't going to matter in a mass Colossi battle. It's more the gas efficiency, and, you know, making Archons out of DTs is just a little bit more efficient. So Todd just playing very, very intelligently here. We do have charge, though, about halfway done from Crank, and that's really going to help with all those Zealots. I mean, yeah, they can melt pretty quickly to Colossi, but at least if you have charge, it really spreads them out a little bit more. They're taking less splash damage. They're actually engaging a little bit quicker. And he does have +3 attacks on the way here. So he's just going to be at 3-0. But Todd is at 2-1 with 2-2 on the way. So he's still going to be able to stay ahead. He's going to go for that 4th base. But I'm actually pretty shocked that we haven't seen a Stargate get dropped down from Todd yet. He's at 174 food. This is the point in time where you really need to be rushing up that tech to Mothership. If one player hits a Mothership before the other, sometimes that alone is enough to win the game.
And these 2 DTs actually in the natural, but they can't really find anywhere to go as the cannon actually finishes in both the mineral lines here. So it's actually going to try and focus the forge here, but not really going to get much done here. So I like the thought behind it, but just not helping. Behind that, though,
I wish
he's already got his 4th Nexus.
Yeah, I would like him to just use that for map control. Take out that Stalker that's holding the Xel'Naga tower. Don't let Crank hold the Xel'Naga unless he has an Berserker there. But yeah, as you said, he's taking a 4th. I feel like Todd's just continuing to stay ahead in almost every regard except that Crank is still staying even on food. Looking at the Harvesters, actually, Todd has so many more workers that actually Crank has a bigger army in terms of supply right now. Simply because of the 16 extra workers Todd has.
The Zealot count, though, with 23 Zealots against 8, those units just kind of melt to the +3 Colossus. So we'll see. We'll see here. Todd looks in a good position. Are these guys just gonna... They're not gonna just walk by each other, are they?
I certainly hope not.
No.
Yeah, +3 has just completed, though, for Crank. So it looks like he wants to hit this timing. And Todd just now going for that Mothership tech. Finally, that Stargate completing here. So not going to have that time for this engagement. Will he have enough Colossi to deal with all those charge zealots? Right now, it is 5 Colossi to 7 in favor of Todd. He also has that upgrade advantage as well, but Crank just moving straight in. He's trying to go for it. Actually, he doesn't quite have the upgrade. Anyway, he does, yeah. +2 armor finish. He's got the upgrade advantage. Todd just trying to posture, put on a little bit of damage, but he can't get caught out of position. He doesn't want to really blow his charge on the Nexus, but it looks like he's going to go for it. A huge engagement. Laser beams going off everywhere, man. Looks like Crank has the higher Archon count and the higher Immortal count, but Todd has the higher Colossus count. Will that be enough, though? Guardian Shield on both sides. Keep in mind, Todd has the upgrade advantage right now. But it looks like Crank, due to the fact that, he